I remember the first time I rode a bike without training wheels. I remember the huge snowmen my dad and I used to build in our backyard. I remember the first time I hit a home run in Little League and the first time I struck out. I remember my first kiss, my first time driving the car by myself, the butterflies in my stomach the night I asked Jody to marry me, the somersaults those butterflies did as I waited for a response. I remember watching both Tyler and Ben enter this world, the feelings when I held them in my arms for the first time. I remember the phone call that shared with us the opportunity to join all of you in ministry and mission in the upper New York area. Memory is a powerful thing. There are certain things in our lives, certain times that just get branded into us because we remember. And that memory leads to countless memories, and memories move us from head experience to heart experience. Once again, we have the opportunity to remember the joy and the power of the news that the tomb of Jesus is empty. We hear the biblical account of the stone being rolled away, of the women who first discovered the body of Jesus wasn't where it had been laid. We feel the excitement as we join with those women in running from that place to share the news with others. Jesus is alive. The tomb is empty. He is risen. Luke's gospel shares all the details of the resurrection that the other gospel writers share. Yet there is something in Luke's account that we don't find in any other. As the women stand confused, wondering what the rolled away stone and the empty tomb mean, two men appear and speak to them. Why do you seek the living one among the dead? Jesus is not here. And then they said these words. This is what is different in Luke's account. Remember how he spoke to you while he was still in Galilee? The two men helped those women to remember the words. How Jesus talked about dying and then on the third day rising again. The entire mood of that early morning changed as the women did something. Luke records it in the 8th verse. They remembered his words. I guess a strict translation of that verse would lend itself to the fact that the women remembered that speech that the two men were talking about. But I don't feel like being strict today. And I want us to think a little beyond that interpretation. Jesus spent at least 30 of his years on earth in Galilee. The first 3 Gospels are made up primarily of the public ministry of Jesus in Galilee. At least 19 of the 32 parables Jesus used to teach were told in Galilee. 25 out of the 33 miracles in Galilee. The Sermon on the Mount was preached in Galilee. Can't you just imagine how it happened at that tomb? All of a sudden, every encounter, every conversation those women had with Jesus became alive. All of a sudden, all of the miracles, the healings, the sermons, and the teaching began to just bounce around within them. Those women left the tomb differently than they arrived because they saw some amazing things. They heard some amazing words, but most of all, they remembered. They remembered exactly who Jesus was and who Jesus is. Their remembrance of Jesus' words were memories of their relationship with him. And that was more than an experience of the mind. It was an experience of the heart. And it was an experience that allowed them to know beyond certainty that Jesus was alive. As you and I encounter the empty tomb again, what is it that we remember? We can shout, Jesus is risen. We can claim the fact that the stone is rolled away. We can say to other people, He's alive. But what do we remember? Not in our heads, but in our hearts. What memories of Jesus, what experiences with Jesus do we bring to this moment, to this place? I remember the first time I realized I needed to ask Jesus to forgive me. I remember how that forgiveness felt. I realized that yesterday, this morning, when I asked Jesus to forgive me, that the assurance of that forgiveness was there. I remember the way in which Jesus lifted me up during the death of our first son, Joshua, during the death of my parents. I realized that Jesus lifts me up every moment of every day and gives me exactly what I need when I need it. You see, Easter is a great day. It's a great event to remember, but it's an event that is about far more than remembering that Jesus rose from the grave. It's a time to remember how Jesus walks with us, how He talks with us. It's a day to remember how He offers us healing and hope, how every time we experience a new day, we experience a miracle. It's a promise to remember that the one who came forth from the tomb is the one who has brought us out of sin and death into new life. It's a time to remember how He has changed us and made us one of His own. You see, it's not the emotion of Easter Day that will keep us moving in our walk with the resurrected Christ. It's the memories of the Jesus we know, the memories we carry within our hearts of the God who wants to be in relationship with us so badly that Jesus was given to die on the cross for me, for you, for us. The Jesus who was raised from the grave for us. That is what will move us forward. If you don't have any memories of Jesus, let me share the good news that today Jesus came out of the grave for you so that you can begin creating some memories with Him. Who has rolled away the stone? Where is the body of Jesus? Why do you seek the living one among the dead? Jesus is not there. He is risen. Remember how He spoke to you? Remember how He has called you? Remember how He has forgiven you? Remember how He has loved you? We, like those women on the first Easter morning, must remember. Remember who Jesus is in our lives. Remember what Jesus has done. And then remember His words and return from the tomb and report all these things to those around us. Let's remember. Let's go tell the world that the Jesus we know is alive. And because the Jesus we know and the Jesus we have experienced in our hearts lives, we live too. May this Easter be a holy time in your life. May it be a time of great memories. Thanks be to God for the reminder and the truth that Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed.